If your name is George, Michael, or Joseph, there's a good chance you suck at baseball. There's also a good chance you share a name with someone who was actually good at baseball. Since the dawn of time, or at least as far back as Fangraphs allows me to export data, Georges, Mikes, and Joes have dominated professional baseball. Collectively speaking, the three names have combined to win 32% of all seasons since 1872, which is not the year Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, but is basically the only frame of reference I have for that period. When I say Georges, Mikes, and Joes have won 32% of the seasons, what I mean is that when you sum up the WAR values for every player and group it by their first name, those three names capture the largest share of season wins. For example, in 1993, the Mikes of MLB, trademark pending, decided to steamroll the entire league by putting up a combined 34.4 WAR, off the back of several players I don't know, and one that I refuse to pronounce correctly. The Mikes have dominated the modern era of baseball so much so that we even saw a player defect from the squad just to give other names a fighting chance. The Mikes want you to believe that they've earned this dynasty, but in reality they've been cooking the books since the 60s. Georges, on the other hand, weren't born with a silver spoon in their mouth, and therefore had to bootstrap their way to each and every one of their league-leading 20-season wins. Sure, this includes the 1872 season where there were a total of 34 players, 3 of which happened to be named George, but hey, that's just life on the prairie, baby. With the exception of 1977, where George Foster and George Brett led their fellow Georges to a cruising victory over the Daves, all of their wins would come prior to the year 1930, and half of them came in a row between 1916 and 1925. The Joes' path to success was different than both the Georges and the Mikes, in the sense that they pretty much relied on one man, Joe DiMaggio. 7 of their first 13 wins came in DiMaggio's first 7 years as a pro, which a statistics major would tell you means nothing because it's all a random variance and we're all gonna die one day. The name Kyle might be popular in the world of Ultimate Frisbee or skateboarding subreddits, but it hasn't been that way in Major League Baseball. In fact, the first Kyle did not crack the major leagues until the year 2011. I should stress that I'm only talking about full-time position player Kyles, meaning they had to have at least 200 plate appearances to qualify. Up until 2020, there were only 2 Kyles floating around the league, Seager and Schwarber. While it was a solid duo, the Council of Kyles knew that to compete with the best, they needed star power. We must get younger, they said. And so, in 2015, a prophecy was born. The prophecy stated that a Ted Williams-like savior would be coming to bring the Kyles out of darkness and into the light, but told its followers to be patient, because he was, after all, a high school outfielder. The heathens who needed to see to believe got just what they asked for in 2021, as Kyle Tucker went scorched earth in his first full season, slashing .294, .359, .557 on his way to a 5-WAR season. Tucker would lead his fellow Zin-loving Kyles to a second-place finish, losing to a Brandon squad headlined by middle infielders Crawford and Lau. After 3 more losing seasons, the Council of Kyles decided to call a meeting ahead of the 2025 season to discuss roster management. Fangraphs had just dropped their preseason projections, and it was no secret the Council was less than stoked on the idea of coming in 6th place. "We're barely above the Tylers?" one of them said.
"The nerds take us for a joke,"
another shouted. The Council knew they could pencil in Tucker for at least 5 wins, and Schwarber for at least 2, but beyond that, they had no idea how they would fill the remaining 11 wins necessary to get to the magic number of 18, or the median season win number.
"Where will these wins come from?"
Father Kyle said. Enter Kyle Stowers, a man who has gone absolutely nuclear in his first full season after being traded by the Orioles. In just 117 games, Stowers totaled 49 extra base hits, 25 of which went for homers, as he slashed .288, .368, .544 on his way to a 4-win season, crushing his projection of 1.1 wins. Enter Kyle Teal, an on-base machine who Billy Beane would have moved mountains to acquire, and is indeed living up to the hype in his rookie year. He would finish with a 2 WAR. Enter Kyle Manzardo, yet another Kyle sacrificed in the name of starting pitching. Manzardo has been a good bat for the Guardians this year, leaving the yard 26 times in his first full season. He would finish with a 1.2 WAR. Filling out the rest of the roster is Kyle Isbell, Kyle Higashioka, and Kyle Farmer. These veterans would add another 1.2 wins to the total, leaving the Kyles 2.6 wins short of their magic number. But what the council, the projections, and really anyone that isn't a crazy Philly fan couldn't account for was Kyle Schwarber hitting 60 home runs. Now, at the time of this recording, Schwarber is 4 home runs shy of that number, but I'm certainly not going to be the guy to say he can't do it in his last few games. More importantly, however, Schwarber has put up a 5.2 WAR, bringing the Kyles' 2025 WAR total to over 18 wins above replacement. The number is of course meaningless as it is arbitrary, thanks to the second place Mats fumbling the bag and finishing with a laughably Tyler-like season of just 12 wins. But it didn't matter, because the council was already off celebrating their win the way a Kyle would, ripping darts outside a 7-Eleven. The 2025 Kyles of MLB have shattered the glass bong ceiling in such a way that it almost makes you think, who else could be good at baseball? Mavericks? Carters? Jadens? Probably not Mavericks.